All right, guys. Since the master has sent his henchmen after me, and there's also some misinformed fans of his that also are harshly defending him, I'm just going to show you a backtest. Now, the purpose of my previous video about the master was not saying you necessarily have to trade that way. What it was showing was that the DR has a higher probability of failing than going the same distance from the confirmation to the failure. It's more likely to do that than go that same distance, but in the direction of the confirmation. So what this is a back test of, based on a 1 minute chart, but calculating on the 5 minute, but the entries and exits are based on a 1 minute chart. This shows the efficacy of the master's strategy if you're going for a 1-to-1 of the DR range. So what this is showing, and the reason I'm showing this is because the way that probabilities work is that if the DR confirmation is more likely to go against it to a certain distance than it is to go towards the confirmation the same distance, that's showing that it doesn't work, because the master might say, oh, well, you should go for the 0.5 standard deviation, but you don't understand that the 0.5 standard deviation, even if the target's smaller, then the probability will change accordingly. But that doesn't mean that the probability will ever skew in your favor with the DR. So if you go for a 0.5 standard deviation target, but then you also tighten your stop way up, it will still, in the long run, lose money. That's what I'm saying. And the thing is either people can't understand that basic concept, or they're working for the master and they're trying to denounce me so that people will keep buying the master stuff. But I'm telling you, this is a back test. Now, look at this also. Since the master began teaching, the strategy actually has performed significantly worse. Okay, so now that goes into something with how the market works, which is that if everyone's trying to do something, guess what? Institutions like BlackRock and Goldman Sachs and whoever has big trading desks are going to counter that strategy. It's a fact. It's a zero-sum game. So the more of you that are trying to trade the master strategy, not only does it breaks even, because look, for years it looks like it does well, and then it fails back to zero, and then it does well, and then it fails back to zero, and then it goes way against zero. It's a zero-sum game, though, so if more people are trying to trade like that, then it's going to fail even harder, because BlackRock's going to catch on. In case you didn't know, they have access to basically all the major brokers' data. They know where your entry, they know where your stops are. They know all that stuff. They don't have to, but they have the tools, even if they don't know that stuff, to figure it out. And the more people that are betting on a certain strategy, the harder they will manipulate the market against those people. Okay, that's how the whole thing works, though. That's how they stay on top. Is like if there's an exploit in the market, they will uncover it about just as quickly, if not more quickly, than anyone else, and then they will abuse it. They can manipulate the market to move against that exploit. They can take away that inefficiency and then even create an inefficiency against it, while people still believe that inefficiency exists, when actually it becomes a negative EV strategy. BlackRock can abuse that. Now, okay, you don't have to believe me in saying that, but even if none of that stuff's true, look, the DR failure rate has increased more and more, has been increasing over the past 2 years. Okay, in the past year and a half or so is when the master started teaching. So since he started teaching, it was failing a little bit before he started teaching, but it has continued to fail. Okay? And it really is just an opening balance strategy. Now, if you want to look at this, so to the long side, it has broken even, not commissions not included. And the short side, it has actually lost money. So if you combine those together, it's a losing strategy. If you use just the long, it's basically like flipping a coin, except you have to pay commissions on your coin flips, so that's also a losing strategy. The data is right here. So the people who say that, like, oh, you don't know how to trade the master, it's like, look, the master keeps adding these fancy new tools to his DR stuff. If he keeps having to add stuff to it to make it work, is it actually working? Because I was there before you guys were there. I saw the Master's channel when he was brand new, when he had barely any subscribers, okay? And so I was there from the ground level of that strategy. I studied it, okay? It's not unfamiliar to me. You probably are newer to the strategy than I am, okay? Now, that said, I can't say I know every little nuance and everything he adds because I don't pay that $200 a month anymore because I'm not going to contribute to his fraudulent gains. But what I do know is that the very base level premise of what he built his whole DR lens on in Drive, DRIVE, is this. He said that this basic premise provides an edge, that once there's a confirmation, when a 5-minute candle closes outside of the 9:30 to 10:30 range, meaning that the close of the candle is higher than the highest wick of a 5-minute candle within that range, or lower than the lowest wick of the 5-minute candle, the 5-minute range, it is indicating a bias to the market in that direction. But the thing is you don't understand that he is manipulating statistics. If you've ever taken a statistics class, you know that statistics can be manipulated in all sorts of ways where they present data and they tell you this thing, but they're leaving out what certain elements of it that will cause you to fail to understand that it's actually just basic probabilities, or that the statistics have been manipulated or not fully represented. So when he says that there's an 80% chance, let's do this, okay? I'll show you the DR, okay? So I'm going to turn off all my stuff that provides an edge because I actually know how to trade. Okay, so I think this is a DR. Oh no, I'm not subscribed to him anymore because I don't want to pay for it. But I have there's free ones, right? Here we go. So just to show you, where does this go? Okay, so for example, where is this? I'm just going to do the regular, the RDR session as he calls it. Okay, so he says when there's a candle close here, this candle close right here indicates a short bias to the market. Now here, yes, the market does go lower. But what his whole thing is that he says that once this happens, there's an 80% chance it won't violate that. So what? That's just basic probabilities. Okay, because the majority of volume in the market comes in during that first hour of the day. From 9:30 to 10:30, the majority of the volume is already through, except for the 3:55 p.m. close, when the volume, when a bunch of traders open and close positions at the end of the day before equities and options close. But the first hour, it makes the most movement, usually. It usually makes the biggest move during that first hour. So of course, once it confirms outside of that later in the day, there's an 80% chance it won't come back there. That doesn't mean that there's an 80% chance that you'll get a one-to-one trade with that as the stop. But the thing is, that's the way that the master is insinuating that you should trust the data. Okay, but if it's an 80% chance it won't hit here, but it's also an 80% chance it'll only go from like here to here, then you will make money 80% of the time that it goes there, but then the 20% of the time that it actually does go there, you will give back all of your gains. And now this is where people say, oh, you don't know how to trade it. Yes, I do, because then he goes, oh, well, he will have stops where it's like, oh, you look for a volume imbalance, right? Okay, so I do know about the master shit, because he'll be like, okay, you need to have a volume imbalance, right? So if he's like, then he'll drop down to the 1 minute time frame or something. And so then after there's a confirmation, he'll say like, look for a volume imbalance or whatever. Okay, so then there's a volume imbalance right there, as you can see. So then he'll say, put your stop right there. And then he'll say like, go for a trade like that. And yes, here again, it works out because the market did trend down. This is not the reason. There's a completely different reason that I do know why, and I'm not going to say it because I'm not going to give away my edge because I'm not a fraud.
why the market goes down. But this is what he's saying. But what you have to understand is that when you do this kind of tight of a stop, it's the same thing. It fractalizes down to the smaller time frame where, yes, you'll win this trade, but then the other, whatever it is, it'll be proportionate. Let's say you're going for a 1-to-1, or if you're going for something like this, you will win and lose proportionally to each other so that it basically will break even or be slightly losing. That's the whole thing behind it. Okay, so you can look for a volume imbalance rejection, all that stuff, and try to trade like that. Again, if it works for you, so be it. But I'm telling you, eventually it will stop working. Eventually you will give back everything you've made, because the strategy, the basic premise upon everything that this is built upon, this is the results of that basic premise. And so if the basic premise doesn't work, then trying to refine it better and better isn't going to make it, you can maybe make it lose less, but it won't win. Okay? This has to do with basic probabilities, the rule of large numbers, statistics. It's not going to work. Okay? Don't believe me? Fine. Again, you could do really well for a period of like 2 to 3 years. And guess what? You're going to give it all back and then some. Okay, so fine. Don't believe me? Go do it yourself. I don't care. Okay, I'm trying to help you here, but if you don't want my help, that's fine. That's your choice. Okay, if you want to lose $50,000 over the next 5-10 years, or $100,000, or however much you're going to lose, go, be my guest, dude. Go for it. Okay? But I'm just telling you, this is the stats of the DR. Since the beginning of 2007, this is the statistics of the DR. Okay? And I didn't code this. I had someone who's much better at coding for trading do this thing. And they coded it. Okay? And they didn't know anything about the DR. They had no bias or opinions about the master when they coded this. They didn't manipulate the data at all. They know nothing about him. They don't have the time to. They work a full-time job and they're busy coding actual trading strategies with me. They coded this just because I asked them to do this. I told them, I didn't even say it's going to work or it's not going to work. I said, let's find out. Okay, so they had no bias, no opinions about this, and they just coded it, just putting actual factual information in, no bias, and they did this with no agenda. Okay, I have an agenda to disprove him because I already know he's a fraud. That person didn't. They were the one who coded this. Okay, so I didn't manipulate this data at all. This is not based on my NinjaTrader. This is based on their coding. It doesn't work, okay? And so it's right here. It's right here in front of you. I showed you the stats. You can pause the video and look at the stuff, okay? If this basic fundamental premise upon which the master built everything, look at his channel. Go back to the very first videos he posted. This is everything that he began selling at first. And everything he's built upon it with now, I understand there's much more nuanced stuff now, but this is how he started out the strategy, okay? And so if this was bullshit, then I think everything he teaches is bullshit. And if I'm wrong, prove me wrong. Because I have all these comments saying you just don't understand. And I know the master's language. I know how he types. I know when it's him or it's somebody who's been around him a lot, who's either indoctrinated by him or working for him. I know. If it's really true, then fucking leak. Then show me his secret shit that he trades in his $200 a month Patreon or the $1,000 a month one if you're dumb enough to pay for his like one-on-one course or whatever. Any of those, show me one of the strategies that works, and show me like 15 years of back-tested data on that exact strategy. Okay? Because if all you're going to come with is just a verbal rebuttal and no stats, no data, then honestly, fuck you. Because I don't trust you, and I know that you're a fraud and a liar too. Okay? So that's that.